60 seconds and counting. We are go for Apollo 7 at this time. T-minus 50 seconds. The vehicle now pressurized, and the vehicle is go, as is the
spacecraft. Hello. I'm trying to look cool. Do I look cool? Hey. Yep, this is me on camera. Okay.
We're going to have a short discussion here. We're going to try to kind of squeeze this in a little bit before our dinner break here. And we have a couple of people with us on stage here, obviously. We have, first of all, Lisa Ann Brown, who is the daughter of T. Townsend Brown. Linda Ann. All right, sorry about that. And then we have Jesse Fritch as well, who's joining us here. He's going to talk a little bit about what this clip is that we're watching right now. Of course, Mark McCandlish was with us before, and then also James Gladman, who's working together with the gentleman who produced the movie, correct? Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But we're going to kind of try to dive pretty much right into this here and kind of see what this is going. I thought we could just begin with you, Linda, so you can kind of tell us just a little bit about your father, his work a little bit, and so we can get the conversation going a little bit. And how have you picked up on his work? Have you been doing anything there?
I have to I have to explain to everyone that I'm not a scientist. Most of the technical work.
Pull up the mic a little bit more.
Most of the technical work that my dad did has been passed to other people. The only contribution that I really have is the observations of a devoted daughter. And I can help some people know what he was like as a person, what it was like living with a person that's living on the leading edge of this kind of technology and having to keep secrets. And I think one of you said, it's a terrible, lonely secret to keep, even from your family. And luckily he was married to a wonderful woman who devoted herself to understanding that his science came first and we came second, and we knew it. And yet I went to 48 different schools before I graduated and stayed in one school for 2 years. So I was averaging 4.8 schools a year just to keep up with my father. And my mother could pack him up like that and be gone. Wherever he needed to go, she went. And I sort of picked up on that. So
all right.
If any of you have any questions about my dad, I'm happy to help you. That's my contribution.
I want to just ask you a little bit, Mark, how this work of Townsend Brown, how that plays into some of the things that we saw in the movie and everything else here. Yeah, maybe you can just pass that mic to Mark then, because that one is, I can take that one. There we go.
Thank you. Well, in the beginning, I was convinced that the entire basis of this propulsion system was the B-field-Brown effect, which would be encapsulated in the capacitor array that was on the bottom of the craft. But as time went on and I began to realize that the central column inside the structure was tapping into the zero-point energy that's responsible for mass and inertia and g-forces and things like that, I began to sense that the capacitor array was used more in the sense of a flight control system, where you could put a little bit more energy on one side and get it to steer in one direction or the other, kind of like the swash plate on a helicopter, the main rotor, where you tilt it one way or the other and you get a little bit more of a cut out of the rotor blade as it comes around on the one side, so it lifts and tilts the helicopter so it goes one way or the other. I think that one of the things that's really important about the design of the capacitors is this foil lamination process. I think that the fact that you have a magnesium zinc alloy, which is kind of a dielectric material, it sort of repels magnetic fields, almost like a mu metal, is used in the electronics industry. With this intervening layer, almost a binding agent of bismuth, which has this really high nuclear spin ratio, like mercury, that this somehow plays a role in making this system more effective than just a mere conductive plate or a series of plates in a capacitor that would function in the way that the B-Phil-Brown effect has been shown to function.
So that's really what he's known for, right? The B-Phil-Brown effect. Now,
more of a steering mechanism.
Oh, okay, yeah. Now, tell us a bit more about the movie, by the way. Maybe you can just talk to us a little bit about how it was to produce the movie.
I'd love to. I really shouldn't be here. James Allan should be sitting here. And James was a student at the college I teach at, Savannah College of Art and Design. And he happened to be a close friend before he became a student. And he was having a little trouble with his thesis project. He wasn't sure what to make. And I've been following the culture of UFOs and secret civilization and so on since the mid-'80s, and I told him, you might look into this scene. There are a lot of interesting things happening. And he grabbed it and dragged me along with it. He was incredibly tenacious and had an incredibly quick mind and was able to parse a lot of information and parse out the bullshit as well. I joined him on this adventure of interviewing Mark and funded the film and helped with pretty much everything. And we used to joke pretty regularly back and forth. We'd post articles about somebody who had discovered some new form of free energy, and we'd send a little note to each other, he's a dead man. And we actually had it down to the initials, HIDM. And little did we know that that might come back to bite us. And James, about a month before he was to release this film, contracted a very rare form of cancer. And it was on the day I arrived back to school for the fall session. And within 3 months, he was dead. And I took care of him and ended up inheriting his estate and intellectual property so that he could get this out there. He was my best friend in town. We were partners in crime. And I'm sorry about the sound issues. It's a very well-made film, but we've had some technical issues here. There's not much else I can tell you about him except you saw him on a little test, a camera test, and I think that's the essence of James. He was kind of a smart ass, and he had no filter whatsoever. He was one of those sort of handsome guys who women would come up to and, oh, who are you? And then he'd open his mouth and they'd go, oh my. And at his eulogy, I said, I know you're up there in heaven, and I know you're going to meet me at the gates, and you're going to tell me what's really going on. So that's really all I have to say, except please watch the film online when it's made available, or purchase a copy when it's made available, and spread the word.
All right, good. Now, we're going to get to you in a moment here. I'm going to step off, I think, a little bit from the mic so we don't get the feedback there. But I just try to want to kind of, I guess, cut to the chase a little bit here as well, where we're going to try to catch up on the schedule a little bit. But maybe we can begin with you, Mark. What is the most, I mean, we heard about the Fluxliner and all these things, you know, the alien reproduction vehicle and all these things. And this is still somewhat old material to a certain degree, right? And everyone wants to know, where is this today? How is this advanced? What are some of the most important things that we can take away with us when we have this knowledge that you guys have presented in the movie? And maybe we can kind of pass that question around a little bit, as you said.
Well, I think that the most important thing to realize is that we're not limited to merely fossil fuels, whether it's coal or oil, natural gas. We are not limited. And we need to realize, like I was saying before about would we have ever tried to fly if we didn't know that there were things that could do that, like insects and birds and so forth. It was the realization that it was possible that made it happen. And I think that if there's anything that I would like you to take away from this conference, it's the understanding that there are possibilities out there that we're not generally told about, things that suggest some very, very exciting moments in the future of mankind in terms of being able to travel out and explore the cosmos, being able to create energy from clean sources that don't leave an entire Pacific Ocean polluted with cesium-137, and things like that. Not that I have anything against people who are trying very hard to save or clean up situations like what's going on in Fukushima at the moment, but I think that we have a much greater potential than we realize, and we just have to continue working to move forward with that and make it happen. And so if you could spread the word, talk about it, share it with your friends. You'll find skeptics in every crowd, but if you just keep watching the skies, you just keep looking, sooner or later you'll see something you can't explain, and then you'll know.
I'd like to just say that all of you in this room right now have an amazing amount of energy here. And you individually, you're like wind chimes. And the music that you all will make a big difference. But you're all involved. Everyone's involved. There isn't anyone sitting here that doesn't have a stake in this.
Very good. Yeah. Jesse, do you want to tell us a bit about what we've been watching in the background here?
Yeah, what I have is one little statement. We went in 1903 with the Wright brothers' first powered flight to this capability, as you see here, in less than 60 years, and it means going to the stars. Less than 60 years. Mankind can do anything. And what you're seeing here, I want to explain. If you look up at the top here, you have azimuth, elevation, and range. This is a radar blip. This is taken on U.S. government tracking cameras and radar. And you're going to see something. This shows the actual, that they're seeing something here. It's a little hard to see. There's a blip right here. The craft is approximately 4.5 miles out away from the camera at this point at the S-13 site. And these sites are all over the range. There's a 3 million acre bombing range for Nellis Air Force Base. It's in south central Nevada. And the controllers, you're not having the audio, they're just civilian contract workers, and they're not classified to see the black budget craft when they fly. Area 51 of the Groom Lake is part of this range. But you can see it here. They're going to do a launch up on it. And it'll say something here shortly in that. But launch up is when they lock radar on an object just before you fire on it in the military. Okay, that's doing it right now. At that point, this thing took off. And it will look like it's going back and forth because this is a joystick controlled camera by the operator. So they're having a trouble keeping up with it.
Who shot this again, you said?
Pardon?
Who shot the video?
This is these controllers on the range.
Right, okay, yeah.
This tape is illegal. The individual who smuggled it out of the range, it was done in November 1994, got caught, he went to prison. How I got it was I got it in 95, 2 months after I received the copy, which I have a friend who was a controller who was hand-carried by another of my friends to me. It was shown on sightings. The segment is intruder on the range. And their so-called experts had no idea what they were looking at. Now, what's happening here is they're going to go back to what they call safe 4 place on the pole with the camera. And they're going to switch from the S-13 site to the S-30 site. And you'll see this change once this thing ranges itself here. But you have to remember, they locked radar on it, and they actually got what's known as a kill, meaning they had a hard lock on something there. It was really there. It's not a mirage. Now, you can see here the black is the craft. Look at the radar here. That's being jammed by the craft. It's jamming this. And if you get in, they're actually going to, in a minute, they're going to zoom in on it and get closer. And you're going to, as you look here closely, it looks like rotor blades. There's a fluctuation around it. This is the massive field that's around the craft. And it's how this works. Linda's father's technology is this. There's no moving parts, none. And when this gets up higher, this is daylight. This is daytime on the range. Now you can see it real close. If you look, it looks like a hummingbird would have with the wings fluttering, but that's the field effect. And when it gets above these clouds here, you're going to see the white plasma field that surrounds the craft, as you can see here. It's approximately putting out, I guess, anywhere from at least 100 million volts, maybe higher. The black, again, is the craft itself. And you're going to get to a point here where it looks like a clover leaf of 4 separate fields. How this works is, the technology is very simple, a capacitor. And this thing moves towards the positive charge. By switching your polarity in the fields, you change directions instantaneously. The crew inside is inside their own gravity field. There's no sensation of movement whatsoever. There's no stress, zero.
Fascinating. Now, I wanted to ask if there's please, if there's a more additional to that we should know of, if you think. Is there anything additional to that we should?
I have this on my site, my YouTube channel, for people to see on that. I have other things. But as you can see here, the 4. And this reverse engineering craft, with all that there, this is so much simpler. Think simple. There's no moving parts. There's even a way to tap energy with no moving parts. None.
Now, I just wanted to ask as well if Mark or James wanted to ask anything from Lisa Ann pertaining to the work of Townsend Brown or anything like that before we start wrapping up here in a little bit.
Sure. Well, Linda, I would really like to know, you described earlier how it affected your life, but how did it affect his life in terms of what his discoveries meant to him?
I think my dad had choices. He could have left us all at home and disappeared. Well, he did, actually, a few times. He took us to Hawaii when I was 2 years old and disappeared for 5 years and came back and collected us. My mother had gotten to the point where she had just about had it, and he said, you have a choice. You can divorce me. You know, I'll understand. I couldn't possibly ask a woman to go through any more of this. And from this point on, and this was 1950, my life, he said, is going to be a living hell. And if you stay here in Hawaii and remarry and keep the kids here, you will have a standard life. And then he said, but I think you'd miss me, and I love you. And my mother said, okay, I'm gone. So that's, you know, that's the kind of thing that has happened not only with my family, but there are hundreds of people that go through this and no one knows about it. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to bring to the surface. There you go.
You know, she's absolutely right. I was going through some of my archives before I came down here, and I came across a letter, some correspondence that I received from someone who'd heard me in a radio interview, Mr. John Bloomer, I believe his name was. And in 1965, he had submitted a patent application to the U.S. Patent Office for a space-based telescope, like the Hubble Space Telescope, except that his particular design used what he called liquid optics. And this was a system that was either using mercury in a special centrifuge that would create a perfect parabolic dish with no distortions, aberrations whatsoever in the weightlessness of space. He got a letter back from the patent office that was included in this package of information he sent to me. And the letter basically said, you will not be allowed to patent this device because certain agencies have determined that this is in the national interest of the defense of the United States. And it quoted from, and you can look this up online, United States Code section, or Title 35, sections 180, 181 through 185, I believe it is. And it talks about there being as much as a $10,000 penalty if you so much as breathe a word about anything regarding your patent that they've told you you can't have. So in essence, what the government has said is that we've decided we like your idea and we're taking it, and you don't get any benefit, you don't get anything from it, and if you talk about it, you'll be in jail. Well, it turns out that this guy was pretty tenacious, and he wound up filing an appeal. And he explained all the reasons why this didn't violate the national security interest, and eventually they granted his appeal. But what they did not do was pay for all his attorney fees, all of the money that he spent seeking the patent, going through a lawyer, fighting the government in court over his own intellectual property. And that's the kind of thing that I really feel bad about, because I think it's what happened to her father. I think it's what happens to a lot of people every year. I personally know another fellow who submitted a patent application a number of years ago, and he was just a young fellow working in a cafeteria at one of the NASA facilities in Houston, Texas, I believe it was. And the device that he was patenting, or trying to patent, was designed to create a kind of gravity vortex field. And when he showed me the drawings of his patent application, it looked remarkably like the apparatus that was designed and built in that film based on Carl Sagan's book, Contact. Looked like a bunch of interlocking rings with objects that would spin around in tracks and create different kinds of electromagnetic fields and things. But that's what this device looked like, and he got the exact same kind of letter that it was in the national security interest and he would not be allowed to patent it. So I know it happens to a lot of different people. It really makes me wonder how much more interesting our lives would be if some of these things were not being sequestered by the government or by some kind of a corporate entity or breakaway civilization, because I think that that's where a lot of this stuff is ending up.
Yeah. Yeah, real short.
May I add something? Somebody called me not long ago, about 2 months ago, not long after James passed away, and it was a fellow who'd found my number, and he said he was an inventor, and he was working with alternative energies that had to do with anti-gravitics and so on, and he was a physicist and an engineer, and he essentially was asking me advice about how to get it out there. And of course, I was a little paranoid at the time because my friend had just died under mysterious circumstances. Maybe he wasn't who he said he was, and just seeing how much I would talk. And I thought about it, and I thought pretty much every means you may think of to get this out has probably been covered by those in power. They know the routes and the channels, and there's got to be a different way of getting it out. I'm not sure how that is, but maybe that's something for us all to think about. Perhaps it's through networking. Perhaps it's not through crowdfunding or anything that brings it to the public eye too quickly. It has to be incredibly stealth, and then it has to happen incredibly fast, disruptively. I hated to be Debbie Downer on the guy and say, I just don't know. I think it's all been covered by the powers that be. But I think we have to really think about a way of getting this outside of the methodologies and techniques we've pursued in the past.
All right, I don't mean to
I-
cut you off real
One little
quick.
thing.
We need to take a dinner
Just
break.
what
I know
you
people
said
are hungry
there,
as well.
I've been telling people with the Disclosure Project and others like that, they are wasting their time because they're never going to get it. And instead, we have to start getting together and do it ourselves. Don't waste your time on the government or any big corporations to come out and give you all the information, because they're never going to do it.
Yeah.
Do you think it can be done
Yeah.
through the capitalist system? Do you think it can be done through a capitalist system, for-profit corporation?
There's a kind of an interesting, I don't know if anyone's seen it, the sci-fi TV show called Continuum.
I haven't seen it.
It's kind of based where they come back in time, and in the future, it's the government's collapsed because of all of its debt, and the corporations took over. And they're trying to stop it. So they come back in time to change when they felt that particular time is when it all started. And it goes into time travel and how even though you're trying to do something right, you can screw it up. It's a very good series and very interesting to watch on that.
All right. I don't mean to cut you off. I wish we could go for another hour talking with you guys. Unfortunately, we need to go and get some dinner. I think everyone needs some pickup and a little energy here. So I want to thank you for being here, all of you. Thank you. Maybe we can continue the discussion later,
unknown object, aircraft some type, 18 degrees, 18.6 degrees elevation, 10.8 degrees or kilometers range. We're going to put a launch up on it anyways and see what happens. It seems to be hovering there. Launch up, 21.3 degrees, 18.5 degrees elevation, 10.9 K. It appears to be going outbound real slow. There's hardly any range velocity. I don't know if this would be an impact or not. We have impact, 024, 18.3 degrees elevation, 11K. We'll call this a kill on this unknown aircraft. T1 control doesn't know what type of aircraft it is either. And no ACM, no tactics.